of a background on the program. Look at that pause as that recording was in progress. So we're going to just talk you through a bit around the background of the Community Solutions project, where it came from, what the aims and the purpose are. And then Senator Nora will be talking you through the grant in a bit of detail, some tips on applying the process. And then, of course, we're here for a Q&A session to answer any questions you may have about the program or about how you might apply. Hopefully you've joined with that intention and you're not suddenly going, this wasn't the meeting I thought. So without further ado, going to jump straight into just talking about that context, and we'll then go through the rest of the slides. So the Community Solutions Grant, then, this is our Meet the Funder events, and this is just happening for today. So for those that are listening back on the recording, unfortunately, you can no longer vote on polls, but you may still be charged. Remember when that was a thing? Love that. So just a quick background and context. So the local NHS, more specifically the Northwest London Integrated Care Board, often known as the ICB, have around £8 million to support activity that reduces inequality and improve health outcomes across Northwest London. Of that funding, around 2.3 million has been assigned to Kensington, Chelsea and Westminster to do by borough-based projects. And when I say by borough, I refer to Kensington, Chelsea and Westminster. The Vibrant and Healthy Community Programmes is where all this work sits for the by borough. So it's a programme that brings together the local NHS, local government, public health and the voluntary and community sector with one main aim, and that's to reduce health inequalities through maximising the role of the community and the voluntary and community sector. And in that programme, we fund different community projects. We create tools to try and increase the voice of the community in health decision making and build an evidence base that demonstrates how the voluntary and community sector are impactful and effective at reducing health inequalities. So that £2.3 million that I mentioned, that is for Kensington, Chelsea and Westminster, that is sitting with Vibrant Healthy Communities, and that is what is funding the 24 to 27, or we really go 25 to 27 in terms of delivery, Community Solutions Programme. And that is being led by One Westminster and the Northwest London ICB alongside Kensington Chelsea Social Council. So if you hear us talking about the Health Inequality Transformation Funding, that's that 2.3 million that's being overseen by the Vibrant Healthy Communities Programme. And we're then partnering with the two youth foundations, with Nora at Young Westminster Foundation and Neve and Sundus at Young K&C, alongside others, to deliver this next 2-year programme where we're focusing specifically on addressing mental health, increasing awareness within global majority communities. So that's just a little bit of background about where the money comes from, who the funder is, and how it aligns with our Vibrant and Healthy Communities programme. So now I'm going to hand you over to Nora and Sundus, who are going to talk you through the grant itself and give you some more details as we go through. So over to you both.
Thanks, Liam. I'm going to go first. And so for those of you who have looked at our guidance already, this won't be new, but those of you who haven't, I'm just giving you a quick overview of the main sort of criteria and outcomes that we would want to achieve with this funding. But there's a lot more information also in the guidance, obviously, and we have got time at the end for your questions. So this is kind of a bit of a quick whistle-stop tour, really. So as we say here, there's 5 key objectives for this funding. And they are all centered around improving and increasing mental health awareness. So it's, we're trying to increase the ability to have conversations about mental health and to manage mental well-being and mental health. And also it's about the increasing the likelihood of accessing services and improve attitudes towards mental health. And we're specifically targeting with this funding global majority-led organizations who we will really want to support in designing their own initiatives, programs, solutions to support young people and families from global majority backgrounds. So we want to we are prioritizing those organizations who are led by global majority communities to work with their own communities, really. And this is all straightforward for you, but just kind of for a bit of background is that when we talk about global majority, we refer to individuals from Black, Asian, mixed, and other racially and ethnically diverse backgrounds. And we talk about global majority because these communities represent the majority of the global population. But they are often underrepresented in mental health support and services. And this is where we want to start making and seeing a difference. These communities and individuals have deep cultural understandings, lived experience, and trusted relationships, which makes them uniquely positioned to create a lasting impact within their own communities. Yeah. Sorry, Liam, can you go to the next slide? Thank you. So we have got minimum eligibility criteria. So everyone who wants to apply for funding must meet these. And then we've got priorities as well, which I will come on to on the slide after this one. But these 5 minimum eligibility criteria are that you have to be a registered charity CIC or constituted community group. You can be a company limited by a guarantee as well, but you have to be non-for-profit. That's kind of that's the bottom line, really. So we are not funding for-profit organizations. The second one is really important to us as well. So we are wanting to support organizations who have already really good relationships within our boroughs. So we're talking about having a track record of delivery, and it could be with children, young people, and families. So have to be able to show that you deliver engaging activities for children and young people and families from global majority communities. And the work itself must also take place in RBKC and or Westminster. If you are a CIC, we're ideally looking for you to have 3 unrelated directors in place. I know that not everyone has, so do reach out about that. But there's a kind of a, sort of aspiration really to have 3 unrelated directors. But it doesn't. If you don't, it doesn't mean that you can't be eligible for the funding. So just kind of reach out to me if you're applying in Westminster, or to Sunders if you're applying in K&C. And that last point around member of Young K&C and Young Westminster, so again, it's kind of, if you are not a member and you've got a question about it, do reach out to us. We do want you to become a member if you're not a member already, because we are looking at really joining up the network and also kind of making sure that we've got all the safeguarding and health and safety checks in place, which is a process that happens when you join to become a member. So yeah, we're wanting to fund organizations within our membership, but that's not to say that if you're not a member yet, you can't become a member. So again, just make sure you reach out and come and ask those questions and get in touch with us. And then, so we talk about partnerships as well. So this is just you don't have to work in partnership. It's also what I really want to be very clear about. You're very welcome to just apply as your own organization. But if you want to work in partnerships, you can. In that case, again, all of the organizations in the partnership must meet those criteria that I talked about just now. And there's a list of supporting documents that you need to submit with your application, and that needs to be submitted by all the partners in the partnership. And if you work in partnership, then obviously the maximum funding amount that's available to each organization is also available to each organization within the partnership. So everyone can apply for up to £30,000 for 2 years, or £15,000 per year, which is the same thing, really. yeah, and then if you are a lead partner, you don't really want to deliver the work, you just want to lead a partnership because you might have a consortium in place that works like that already. You can also kind of ask for some funding to support that management of the partnership, which is 10%. So again, if that's something that you're interested in, I would really strongly encourage you to reach out to me or Sundus to just talk that through before you apply. Thank you. And so this is what I said earlier about our priorities. So we've got the minimum eligibility and these are the priorities. So if in the event that we are oversubscribed with the funding, we will very clearly look at these 4 criteria, which I already said, that priority will be given to organizations that are led by a global majority. And that to define that, looking at the trusteeship or the board or directors, which have to be 50% from a global, more than 50% from a global majority background themselves. Then we are interested in funding smaller organizations with an annual turnover of less than £500,000. And then focus on young people's mental health awareness. Again, so this funding is open to families and young people, children, young people and families. But we are trying to sort of, for this funding to reach young people. So I think that this is what this is about. You know, we're really interested in funding something that reaches children and young people and increases their mental health awareness. And then we've got those geographical area of interest and those wards within RBKC and Westminster. So we're really looking at trying to reach communities who live in those that are listed there. Thanks. So yeah, so this is the funding that we have available within this funding. So it's £640,000 for 2 years, and that will be sort of roughly split across both boroughs. We're trying to achieve sort of a rough equal split to just make sure that we, ensure fairness and geographical spread across those boroughs, both boroughs and those wards. And like I said earlier, you can apply for up to £15,000 per year. And the projects would start in April and then finish in March 2027. So it's a 2-year grant, and it will be £15,000 per year, so £30,000 in total. You can apply for less, but that's the maximum you can apply for. And then this is just kind of talking you through about process. So you would have to give us some information about who you are as an organization, what your track record is of reaching children, young people and families from global majority communities. Then we would want to see or need to see a description of the activity that you would like to deliver, how it meets the project aims and objectives. And then there's some supporting documents that need to be submitted. And these include safeguarding policy, bank statement, employers insurance and public liability insurance, as well as a project budget. So we're collating all that information, and then there will be 2 separate panel meetings, one for Westminster and one for RBKC, where those decisions will be made in 2 different panel, because we have different expertise in different boroughs. So there will be 2 decision meetings that will take place at the end of March. Yeah, and that's it from me, I think. As I said, we have got a bit more time at the end to kind of talk through any questions that you have. But Sundus, as you know, if you have looked at the guidance, we are asking you to submit your application through Plinth. And for those of you who are from Westminster, that won't be something you might have done necessarily before. So Sunda's just going to talk you through the process of that, to just explain that a bit better.
Thank you so much, Nora. Yeah, so we at Young K&C we use the print service, which is where we normally put most of our grant applications. And I just thought it would be good for myself to do a quick tutorial to show you guys how to use that service. We also have a link within the slides, which will be in both the Young K&C and the Young Westminster website in terms of how to use print. But it's very, very simple to use. If you can just bear with me for 1 second, I'll just share my screen and then we'll just go through that quickly. Can you guys see my screen? Sorry, Liam.
Just loading at the moment. Give it a second, it might come up. Yeah, there we go. Just a bit small.
Should I just zoom in? Okay, so this is where you will find, I'll just show you where you can find the application actually. So if you go on to the Young K&C webpage, or it could be the Young Westminster webpage, but I'll just use the Young K&C webpage. And if you go to our grants, you can access the application over here on Plinth, and that's where you can access it. If you're from, it's the same application link if you're from Westminster or Young K&C, so you can go in either or.
Can you go a little bit slow, please, with the slides, because it's going too fast and
okay, no worries, I will do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you'll find the link to Plinth on either on the Young K&C website or the Young Westminster website. And it's just a simple application which you kind of need to complete. If you are from Young K&C, you've already applied for a grant, this is nothing new for you. But if you are from Westminster and you're applying for it, I'll just show you how to sort of onboard yourself and how to kind of get onto Plinth. So what you'll need to do initially before you kind of apply is obviously you need to sign up and onboard yourself. So this is just a rough application format that I'm creating. So you just put in your name, your email address, your password. After you've signed up, saying password incorrect. It's not really working, but after you signed up, it will ask you to add some of your details, in which you'll be able to add your details such as your address, your location, your charity number as well, and create a portfolio. So you can create your own profile. And once you've created your profile, you can add admins. So in terms of if you have 1 or 2 or 3 other people that you want to check the application, you can also add them to that. After you've created your account, you'll then be able to go onto the Plinth website and you can actually start applying for it. You can download the templates over here. We've got an information cover of what the grant is, which is pretty much our grant guidance. And then you'll be able to download the budget and the risk assessment template over here. If you already have a budget template that you already use, just double check that it matches some of the contents that we require from you. And then also the risk assessment as well. Just double check it contains all of the contents that we require. Then you'll just simply, I've just done a test run, but you can just simply put in your application there. So your organization name, your charity number, your annual turnover. If you're working in a partnership or if you're working by yourself as an organization, lead contact name, contact job title, you just put in your address, your email address, answer kind of if you are part of Young Westminster, Young K&C. And then you can keep going next question that you want to ask. You can also save the applications as you keep going on. So for example, if you want to focus on one aspect of the application today, for example, if you want to focus on just this section, you can do that. You can save it and you can return back to how it is. I will show you how you can save that, but I'm just going to go through how the application would look. So you put in information about your organization, information about your project. If you are working in a partnership, you put in details of kind of more details about the partnership that you're working with. You can add information about your budget over here, and you can just upload your budget where it says over there. You can just download it and upload your budget. And then you can upload your operational details on there as well as a declaration of kind of you've agreed to the terms and conditions of the grant. So it's pretty much quite straightforward to look at. You can always consistently save the application, and where you can find out how to save it is if you go to your left-hand side of the screen, and where it says funding and manage funders, you can find the application forms that you've submitted. So these are 2 test application forms that we've done, but you can find that over there and you'll be able to view them up until you submit them in terms of what your responses are to them. You're also able to save your applications on there as well up until the deadline. And then once the deadline closes, the application will close. So it's quite simple to use. And the Plinth is just something that we're still working on. So there are still a few things that we as an organization are still doing and working on. But we had tried this before with a lot of the organizations, and it is quite simple to use. I don't know if anyone's got any questions or anything about that right now. Okay. Are you, Liam, are you okay to go back to the slides? I'll stop sharing.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah. So applications will be at 11:59 on the 5th of March through Plinth. If you want to draft out your applications, we do have a worded copy of that, and you can find that on our webpage. But we all encourage everyone to upload information, all your information on Plinth. If you're working in a partnership as well, we also recommend in terms of all of the key documents, such as your safeguarding, your risk assessments, and all the key documents needed for all the partners should also be uploaded as well, because we want to make sure that it's not just you who's eligible for this grant, it's every single partner. So the partnerships, everyone needs to upload on that. Next slide, please, Liam. A huge element of this grant will be centered around youth voice. So we are obviously, both ourselves and Young Westminster Foundation, we are dedicated to amplifying the voices of local children and young people. And as part of that, a representative or a group of young local people will play a key role in assessing the applications, providing their perspective and contributing to the decision making. And they'll also be sitting on the grant panel. And our grant panel will be consisting of 50% professionals and 50% young people in terms of determining who can access and get these funds and grants. Next slide. In order to help you, we just come together and create a few tips that can help you with your grant. So we want you to be able to have clear explanation of your project and your outcomes. So we want you to be really, really clear about what your project is doing. We are happy to fund existing programs, but as long as it meets the criteria, and we want to know kind of how you've adjusted that existing program to this grant, which is about mental health awareness and kind of amplifying the voices of global majority individuals. I think it's really, really important for you to highlight that as well. Be very clear using the 5 Ws, explain your projects, the cohort that you're working with, and kind of why you're working with them as well. It's really important for you to also address the needs of the young people you're working with. So using any feedback that you've had from young people, whether it's children or families that you're working with, and kind of how they've kind of contributed to the project. And it's really good to see that in your application. As I mentioned in the previous slide, youth voice and young people really want to see how involved young people have been with this project. It's really important as well to kind of support what you say. Obviously, there's a lot of statistics and data around mental health and mental wellbeing in global majority communities. We've referenced that in our grant guidance through a report from the BME Health Forum. It would be really great for you to also use some of those statistics as well. We've got data, and Westminster might have data, but in K&C, we've got data on poverty and prosperity in K&C as well. So using all of that data to sort of kind of strengthen the application is really, really important, because obviously this is a grant pot that we are splitting across 2 boroughs, so there is a high chance of oversubscription. So if you want your application to really stand out, it's really important to support and back what you say. And in regards to your budget, we want you to be very, very clear with the budget in terms of what your costings are going to be and how you're breaking down your costs. If you're working in a partnership, we also want to see kind of how you're distributing the fund across the partners. So if you are going to be a lead partner, how is that going to be distributed across that as well? So we really want you to be very, very clear in terms of all the policies that you have, your applications, as well as your budget as well. Next slide, Liam. So just an overview of the key dates. Obviously, we've got the deadline, which is the 5th of March, 11:59. So it's a hard deadline. As soon as that deadline passes, even by a minute, Plinth completely closes, so you'll not be able to upload on Plinth. So please make sure you get in your applications on time. Between the 5th of March and April, early April, the first week of April, we will be reviewing applications, undertaking grant panels, assessing applications, and hopefully we'll get some decisions for you in April, and your program will start across from April onwards. And this is a 2-year grant program. So once you put in the application and you've been awarded the fund, you'll be funded for the next 2 years up until the 31st of March 2027. And within that, there'll be commitments such as key meeting dates, key monitoring that you will need to complete. But obviously, once you've been awarded the grant, we will communicate with you in regards to that. We've got time for questions now. So if anyone's got any questions, I know that the chat was going. There was a lot of information in the chat, but if anyone's got any questions, we've got a couple of minutes to answer them.
Celia,
Oh,
sorry.
go ahead, Nora, please.
Yeah, I just saw Celia's question in the chat. So yes, you can still apply, even if your organization is not global majority led, but priority will be given to those that are. So you can still apply, but we'll see what happens. It really depends on, you making a case for the work and also what else is on the table, and how oversubscribed we
That's
will
really
be.
helpful. Thank you.
That's okay.
And then I can see a hand up. So I'll come to Nasera, and then we'll see if there's any other comments in the chat to pick up. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you for the invitation, and for the clarification for this grant. I just want to clarify another thing, because we work with adults. I work with adults here at Manar, and I wonder if for mental health we support people with Grenfell and beyond with mental health. And I was wondering if this grant is also can also be for this age group that we work from, 25 up to 100 years. So very adults, yeah. So I wonder if, so I believe that these adults also are in constant contact with young people, because I have children, or so I think if we help also the adults, we can also help the relationship with young children. So I wonder if which category we can be put, or in this grant. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and you're quite right that the program is trying to reach children, young people, and families. So if you directly work with parents or you work with persons within a family setting who are indirectly engaging with children, it might be through caregiving, grandchildren, and others, then they're all relevant. But we would ask that you make sure in your application you link back to the family and how it will either directly or indirectly support young people and their mental health awareness. We know that within many family settings, there's a lot of intergenerational difference and stigmas that can arise, and we want to look at that whole family setting. But we do know as well that if we want to do some prevention work, which is where this really sits, we really want to be reaching children and young people at the earliest possible moment. So if it's someone like me who's a bit older than that, doesn't live with family, doesn't have any children, I'm probably not the intended audience for this program. Also, I'm very white, which would also exclude me. Should say that as an obvious one, but we're really looking at those family settings. Hopefully that answers your question. Great. Ida, did you want to come in next? You're just on mute at the moment, Ida. Go ahead.
Oh, hello everyone. I am Aida from Albanian Community Ave Maria School, and we do have schools in your area which you are supporting. But and I can see that my director is here, so he can ask a question for Ave Maria as well. But my question today is for I have just opened a new organization, British Albanian Women Organization, and we support women who have problems with their children, teenage children, mental health, and ongoing schools when they go from one stage to the other stage, for example, year 7 from primary school to secondary school, etc. So, and we cover the whole London. It's not just one borough. Can we apply?
Yeah, so we've mentioned in the chat as well, you can apply for the work that you do specifically in Kensington, Chelsea, and Westminster, but that funding could not be used for the work that you may do in other boroughs, unfortunately, we're very restricted to that only funding the work that's in the two boroughs. And we've, in the priority list, talked about the specific areas that we know that there is the greatest levels of deprivation and the increased likelihood of mental health difficulty. So that's also in those prioritization guidance. So we just need to make sure if you were looking to apply either, that you'd be very clear how the money is directly going to support activity to people living or accessing support in Kensington, Chelsea and Westminster.
Okay, so I just need to specify or to target the families in these areas.
Absolutely,
Thank you
absolutely.
very much.
And obviously, as part of the application, the stronger applications will have demonstrated that there are relationships, links, and a history of working in some of these areas that give us a knowledge that there is lots of work, lots of relationship. There's going to be a successful project. So the more that you can demonstrate work that you have already done in Kensington, Chelsea, and Westminster with global majority families, with children, young people, and in these prioritized areas, the stronger your application will be.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
And sorry, Liam, just to add to that, because I saw a question in the chat from Corinne. So you can work in both boroughs as well, of course. So you don't have to decide whether it's one or two or one ward, or, you can work across, but it has to be within those two boroughs. And those wards that I've listed earlier will be prioritized.
Thanks, Nora. Kieran, coming over to you.
Thanks. It's just a quick question, probably to Sundus on the Plinth application form. Is it one of those forms where you have to complete every question on the page before you can go on to the next page? Or can you go, skip some and go back to move on?
I think in order to submit the application, you are going to have to complete every single question. Yeah. But if you do want to save the application, come back to it later, you can skip them and just save it and then go back to the original question as well. If not, you can also just put like a little dash or comment in there so that you can come back to it as well. So the only time you only have to complete all the required questions on the fee to submit. That's towards the end when you submit it. But other than that, it's completely fine. So you can use it like that.
That's great. Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks, Kieran. And just before bringing your interest, just going back to the questions in the chat, I think they're mostly so far been around where the projects can be delivered. Nora's had explained that you can deliver in both Kenton, Chelsea and Westminster if you like. But again, just on the point, Chris, that you'd mentioned also, I think Albina had mentioned around, can it be used for other communities or in other areas? Unfortunately, it cannot. It can only fund project activity reaching people who live or access support in Kent, Chelsea and Westminster. Trish, coming over to you.
Hi, and thanks so much for all the info. I just want to ask, does the funding have to cover the complete project, or if the project we have is a new project that we've already secured some funding for, and this one could potentially complete the funding? Is that possible to apply if it's part of the funding?
Yeah, I can see me, Sundus, others all like nodding along.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It can fully fund or part fund. And if anyone has been in meetings with me before, will know I talk a lot about full cost recovery and not trying to cover too much with what is quite a small amount of funding. So adding it to other funding streams that you have is absolutely fine.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
So we will just wait a few minutes. We'll see if there's anyone else who got questions. We know that some people did put some questions forward in advance. So rather than just sitting and staring awkwardly at you all for the next 20 minutes until we finish, we can cover off a few of those. But in the meantime, Chris has saved my awkwardness. Go ahead, Chris.
Oh. Hi, can you hear me?
We can indeed, mate. Go ahead.
Yeah. It was just about my question in a bit more detail. We are looking to do something in Kensington and Chelsea Borough. We're working with a organization called Fit for Life Youth, but it was just more. Is it actually? I think you answered it already. So because we're also looking to do it. I'm trying to remember the borough, but I think it does fall within Kensington and Chelsea. Sorry, that was also something I was wanted to ask. We've got two unrelated directors, not three. Would that put us at a disadvantage, or should we look for another unrelated director?
What does unrelated mean?
Just in answer to your question, Corinne, that they're not family relations, so quite literally blood or legal relation to, I think Nora Sundus or Neve, you might be able to speak to that point more. Neve, you look somewhat poised maybe to answer that, so I'm going to come to you.
Yeah, just a point, Chris. Hi, nice to meet you. I think just as a wider point of practice, it is really recommended to have three unrelated directors when you look at longer term and sustainable funding. So from an organizational development point, I'd suggest yes. In line with the fact that this closes in the next couple of weeks, realistically, that puts you under like a fair amount of stress to be running around and double checking if people are ready to take this responsibility. If you have someone lined up, I'd say yes. If not, it's something that we would discuss because you're in a partnership with another organization. We do have some support there in terms of governance with the work that your partner organization has as a governed charity. Young K&C stance is we do aim for three unrelated directors, but I know we have a bit of flexibility within this grant because we've aimed for ideally. And I think we'd kind of go case by case on this. And because you've got the support from another organization, it shouldn't put you at too much of disadvantage.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that.
All right.
Corinne, I know you came off mute a second ago. I don't know if you wanted to add any other questions, or I know you popped one in the chat. Is there anything else you'd like to ask?
Yes, I wasn't actually clear about what was stated. If it's a crop, I mean, I will work probably in Harrow Road and Queen's Park, but it would be great to sort of incorporate some young people from K&C, but that goes across the boroughs in terms of funding. So is that too complex? I don't mind if it is, and I'll hold back, but
No, absolutely not. From that list in particular priorities, if you want to work in all of them, one of them, if you're in one particular area in Kent and Chelsea, one particular area in Westminster, maybe you're able to reach people from across both boroughs.
okay.
Absolutely up to you how you want to deliver your project. What will strengthen your application is demonstrating that reach into that community, your connections, having good project ideas, young people being involved in the design. So in terms of where you are within the two boroughs, that doesn't necessarily matter as long as it is within the two boroughs.
Understood. Thanks.
Most welcome. Well, maybe whilst there's a few last questions that might be milling around in your mind, just going to take a moment to answer some of the questions that were posed in advance, just so we've covered them off. And I should add that we'll aim then to pull a frequently asked questions document together that we'll share after this meeting as well. So a couple of the questions that were asked in advance. One question was, can you apply for funding if you're already receiving a grant from either Young Westminster or Young Kenton and Chelsea? The answer to that is yes, you can still apply. Receiving another grant from either youth foundation does not exclude you, so please do apply. There was a question around, can this grant be used for organisations' own staff, as they have a great need within their staff members? A majority of those are under 25. So yes, again, we have said that absolutely you can use that for staff members. If it's just an internal organisation that you're trying to work with, then appreciating that those staff members may live or be connected to the boroughs. If it's quite a small organisation, may need to show that you also have reach out into the community as well as those who are supporting within the organisation. I'll pause and pick up a couple more in a moment. I see, Ada, from your point that Lutfi would like to ask a question. Don't know if they'd like to come off mute and ask a question or throw it in the chat.
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Lutfi. I'm a director of our Maria organization, which run in the supplementary schools in Westminster for 20 years. And we know some of them. We actually worked with Nora for many years. My question is, when you're talking about the budget, you said the budget of the project or budget of the organization first question. Another one is, when you say children and the youth, I mean, for example, we have a classes in Westminster in St. Augustine School, and we should apply on this grant for for the school in St. Augustine?
Hi, Lutfi.
Hi,
Shall
Nora.
I take that? Hiya,
Yeah,
hi. I'm
thanks.
gonna, yeah. So, in answer to the first bit of your question, we want a project budget. So that's what we need to see. And
Project
there's
budget is fine.
project budget, yeah. There's a template that you can download on Plinth. So yeah, take a look at that. And so yes, so we would need you to work with children and young people, families who live in Westminster, basically.
Yes.
So yeah, it would most likely be that, you know, the families that you work with at St. Augustine's already. But it's about those local communities.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Also, sorry for that slight delay. Just replying, I could see someone in the chat had mentioned again around the directors. So just responded, as Neve had mentioned, that it is guidance to have those 3 unrelated directors for a community interest company or other non-profit registered company. But that if you do not have that in place at the moment, please do reach out directly by email. We'll make sure details are shared at the end so you have that information. A couple more questions that I can just cover off from the questions that were asked in advance. So there was one that I think we've kind of answered already, asking about newly registered limited companies that align with the 5 listed funding objectives, and would they be eligible to apply? So yeah, if you're a newly listed company, you are still eligible to apply. When we say company, we need to make sure that you are a non-for-profit company. So companies limited by guarantee or for profit-making purposes are not eligible for this grant. And also just that point that we have mentioned, that a strong application will demonstrate that it has links and a history of working with people and young people in global majority communities in Kensington, Chelsea and Westminster. Now, that may be as a new company, it's because of your own previous expertise and your work in the borough before setting that up. So talk about all the different expertise and links you have in the borough to help strengthen your application, especially if you're a new organisation. 2 more questions that we'll just pick up. There was one asking about how would you see partnerships working? And that very much is going to be completely up to you. It may be that you are an existing collaboration of a few organizations that like to work together, that would like to jointly bid for that fund. It means each of you within that partnership can apply for the total amount of up to 30,000, and that you would see that by entering into a partnership, you bring more value to the project, or you can support each other more. There's an added value to that. And if one organization was taking the lead, you can apply for that additional 10% of leadership cost. In others, it may be that as maybe a smaller or grassroots voluntary community sector organization, you may not feel you have the infrastructure or the planning or the things around you to be able to apply for a grant of this size. So maybe by working in partnership with a large organization who can do some of that management for you or support you may also be a way that you could be enabled to go forward in this grant. I'd say it's worth just thinking, can you apply yourself and put forward your application? But if you would think it would strengthen, or that you could only apply through a partnership, then we very much welcome you to. And they will all look slightly different depending on how you decide to come together. And the last ones we'll just pick up from the questions that were asked in advance. One question said, does all the work have to be delivered in person, or can it be delivered virtually? I think that completely depends. You make the case in your project submission when you submit your application, what you think the value of being either online, virtual, digital, or in person, maybe a balance between the two. We will have young people on the panel and other organizations. So it will be viewing your project proposal and seeing the strength of it based on what you propose. So I'm sure it'll be a bit of both, maybe one more than the other. That's completely up to you. And the last one was around how much the grant is and if it's split over the 2 years. And I think we've kind of talked about that it's £30,000 in total, or 15,000 per organisation per year. Dima, have you got your hand up if you want to come and ask your question?
Hello, hi. Yeah, it was on the chat as well. Can this grant be used for projects delivered in mother tongue, like heritage language?
That would absolutely be fantastic. Anything that you want to deliver, so it does not have to be delivered in any language, whatever language is most comfortable or is best for the project that you're delivering, whether that's in multiple different languages, within English or within mother tongue, completely up to you. But that would be fantastic to see applications that are being delivered in lots of different languages. That I think would be a real success of the project. So we'd definitely encourage that.
Just to get up to that. Hi, Tamer. What I would say as well is on the BME Health Forum, they have one of the recommendations is cultural services or services that are catering to cultural needs. And I think if you can reference that in your application as well, that would be really good in terms of the strength of that. So yeah, it's in the grant guidance, so you'll probably see that on there.
All right, thank you.
No worries.
Well, that's all the questions that we had in advance. I think that's all the questions in the chat. So unless anyone else on the call would like to ask any more questions right now, I know that Nora and Sundus have put some contact details in the chat, so you can always reach out to us after the event. Trish, do you want to come in?
Yeah, sorry. We are looking to expand some existing work we do with Mind, the mental health charity Mind. But technically we'd be commissioning them, if you like, because they obviously have the expertise and the networks into CAMS and additional services, which is why we would like to recruit someone via them or commission someone via them. And I just want to check it, because it would be in theory us kind of essentially paying someone via them. Do we have to kind of name them? Do we name them as a partner? Maybe this is a bit of a complicated question, but it's kind of maybe not a partnership in the sense of kind of both, you know, it'll be our young people, and so it won't be joining up organisations to, you know, it'll be our young people that we'd be supporting, but it's just to kind of expand an existing provision via them.
Yeah, I think you're right in that may be a question you could reach out to Nora and Sundus as you get into application. That doesn't sound like a partnership because there won't be more than one organization applying for funds. It's more that you're using the funds to recruit people or expertise in almost a consultancy or kind of ad hoc capacity. So I think you could just talk about that within your delivery model of how you will obtain the expertise and the value that will bring to your project.
Okay, amazing. Thank you, Leo.
But do kind of follow up with Sundus and Nora. There may be more as you come to write your application that you're like, oh, just double check that this sounds right. But that'll be my initial response.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Great. Ada?
A second question. So just for information, did other boroughs receive the same grant from NHS? And if they did, how can we find out? Like Lambeth, Wandsworth, this boroughs.
So each borough has decided to spend the inequalities funding differently. In Kenton, Chelsea and Westminster, we got our elbows in there quite quickly. We also are very grateful that our local ICB and other health leads really support the sector and want to work with the sector. I say that because I know Rachel and Claire are on the call, so we have to be nice to the ICB, but generally speaking, we have really good relationships. They are very supportive of the work we're doing. So it looks very differently in each borough. It's also just for the Northwest London borough, so that wouldn't include, for instance, Hammersmith and Fulham that sit in a slightly different structure. So it may be worth reaching out to the NHS in that local area, and you could find that out just through going to the NHS website and searching by town or postcode for a contact to reach out to them. If you get stuck with that, Ida, feel free to message me and I could always just try and help you identify who you could reach out to ask about funding in other areas. But in truth, we wouldn't really know that much more than that, unfortunately. It's just slightly different in each area.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, so before finishing, I'd just quickly invite if any of our facilitators, so Nora, Rachel, Neve, Claire, Sundus, anything you'd just like to share before we finish?
I think just from me, this is a really interesting and really well-needed grant, and all of the work that you're all doing in your communities is absolutely vital. And I think from Young K&C's perspective, it's really nice to have a commitment for some longer term funding. So we're really able to see the impact of the work that you're doing with your communities, and then hopefully work with the organisations that are in our boroughs as to how we can kind of continue and make sure that these become embedded practices and learning. Young K&C, if you're a Young K&C member, we actually have a youth mental health first aid training taking place on the 2nd and 3rd of April. Don't know if those are the dead on dates. I think they are, but I'll make sure that I send them over to Liam and you can have a little look through that. It is a fully mental health first aid accredited session. So if you are able to attend, it's really helpful kind of in preparation, not only for this grant, but also for any future work that you're doing around supporting mental health. It's focused on children and young people. And so for any Young K&C members that are currently on the call, I really recommend attending or getting some staff members to attend as well. Fully free. It's a 2-day course, and you do come out as a qualified youth mental health first aider. Our whole staff team has it, and it's been really helpful in the work that we deliver. So really recommend. And if you have any questions, you know where to get in touch with us.
Well, then that brings us to an end. So thank you all very much for coming in and joining us this afternoon. We hope that all of you will now feel in a position and confident to apply. Tell us all about the wonderful projects you have planned and the ideas that you have. You have all the key dates. We'll share the slides afterwards, and you have the contact information both in the slides and in the chat and on all the platforms where you can apply, where you can contact us, and particularly Nora and Sundus, for more information or to talk through your application. We'll say no more. Thank you all very much. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very
Thanks so
Thanks a lot.
much.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.